Taking amazing photos is about more than just pointing and shooting. Put your camera in front of you while you watch this video. Your camera has settings that can drastically change how your pictures look. Don't worry, they're not as scary as they seem. Here at Norman Monto Photography, we're going to break down 3 of the most important ones for you: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Once you understand these, you'll be well on your way to capturing stunning images. Let's dive in. Think of these settings like learning to ride a bike. At first it feels a bit wobbly, but with practice it becomes second nature. Soon you'll be adjusting your camera settings without even thinking about it. The key is to start simple and experiment. Whether your camera came from your parents, a garage sale, eBay, or you purchased it new, take advantage of the technology level that your camera has. Try different settings and see what happens. You can always upgrade your camera later, so work with the camera you have now. With some experience, you might be surprised at the results you get. Ready to unlock your camera's full potential? Before I say, let's go, get a small notebook and keep it with you. As you take photos, write down the settings you use for each image. Now let's go. Aperture is like the pupil of your eye. It's the opening in your lens that controls how much light enters the camera. A wider aperture, like a bigger pupil, lets in more light, and a narrower aperture lets in less. But aperture does more than just control light. It also affects something called depth of field. Depth of field determines how much of your photo is in focus. A wide aperture, low f number like f1.8, will give you a shallow depth of field, meaning only the subject you're focused on will be sharp while the background will be blurry. This is great for portraits or making your subject stand out. A narrow aperture, high f number like f16, will give you a larger depth of field, meaning more of your image from foreground to background will be in focus. This is useful for landscapes or group shots. Shutter speed is all about time. How long your camera's shutter stays open to let in light. Think of it like a curtain opening and closing. A fast shutter speed, like 1/1000th of a second, is like a quick blink. It freezes action and is great for capturing sharp images of moving subjects like sports or wildlife. A slower shutter speed, like 1/30th of a second or longer, is like leaving the curtain open longer, allowing you to capture motion blur. This can be used creatively to show movement in your photos, like flowing water or the streaks of car lights at night. Keep in mind that with slower shutter speeds, you'll need to hold the camera very still or use a tripod to avoid blurry photos. Experiment with different shutter speeds to see how they affect your images and find what works best for the scene you're trying to capture. This is where the data you write in your notebook will be helpful. Remember, practice makes perfect. ISO is your camera's sensitivity to light. The lower the ISO number, the less sensitive your camera is to light, and the higher the ISO, the more sensitive it becomes. Think of it like turning up the volume on your headphones. A lower ISO is like listening to music at a lower volume, while a higher ISO is like cranking it up. When you increase the ISO, you're making your camera more sensitive to light, which can be helpful in low-light situations where you don't want to use a flash. However, there's a trade-off. As you increase the ISO, you might start to see noise or grain in your images, especially in the darker areas. Noise can make your photos look less sharp and detailed. The key is to find the right balance between ISO, aperture, and shutter speed to get the best possible exposure without sacrificing too much image quality. Now get out there and take those photos. We are here if you need us.